Okay, I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know if you guys able to see. Yeah, you guys able to see right my screen? Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I like I I have gone through a couple of examples. Okay, you know to differentiate how you do the same example in Java and how you do the same example in Spring. So you'll be able to understand what all the concepts that we are learning in the Spring. Okay, so what I've done actually, I have prepared a this is one of the example which we have it in in the internet also. So what I've done, I have done modifications to make it to make these things to understand properly for you guys. So uh, there are 4 iterations that I took, okay, to make these concepts are covered into in the program. Okay, so I wanted to create a design a game runner class. Okay, game runner, okay, to run all these 3 games. Okay, okay, it is an interactive approach. Okay, so what we do, in the iteration 1, we are going to create a tightly coupled Java code game runner. Okay, and game classes for all the other you know 3 games. Okay, this is our iteration 1. So we were talking about this tightly coupled and loosely coupling when we are talking about Spring Advantage and Java advantages, right? So yeah, I'm gonna tell you what is tightly coupled, and then we go with the loosely coupled program. Okay, so let me go and start sharing the code. Okay, so I already added that code. I have already created it, this class, and I made it ready. But it would be better, like when we write this program when the class starts. Okay, so but for the time purpose, actually I already created it. Okay, so what I've done, uh, I've created a Maven project. Okay, and in this, as I discussed in the iteration 1, what I've done actually, Contra game, and Mario game and Pac-Man game. Okay, so all these 3 games, okay, are having certain methods: void up, down, and void left, and void right. Okay, Mario game. Okay, so these things, same way. I have implemented a couple of methods. Okay, Pac-Man also I have implemented some methods which can run the game. Okay, now what we need, as per our requirement, we need a game runner class, game runner class to run all these games, tightly coupled Java code game runner class, right? So let me do one thing. For now, I'm just removing these. Okay, for now, I'm just removing this. Okay. Yeah. Now why it is coming? Because of this annotation. Okay. Yeah. Now I need to create a game runner class to run these things, right? So I have, you know, let me create first to run the game for Mario. Okay, so in the game runner class, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to run the Mario game. Okay, with the default, with the constructor, which is having a parameterized constructor with which we are passing a Mario game as an object, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm going back to this. Okay, let me comment this. Okay, now we have designed Mario game and we are trying to, yeah, okay. Okay, so now what we have done, we have created a Mario game, okay, and we have created a game runner class which can take Mario game object and it will print that particular, so it will run those Mario game in it. Okay, so this is what we have done it, right? Okay, one second. Right. So this is what we have done. So what we created a Mario game and call that customer, call that Mario game constructor, to get an object of where Mario game, and we are passing that Mario game to the game runner. Okay, and we are using game runner dot run. Okay, so that it will run on its own, and it is going to create that game to run on the screen, right? So let me run this Java code. So what it done, it ran the Mario game, and it executed all the methods whatever we have it in the Mario game. That's good, right? Okay, so it is very simple, and what we are trying to do now, I'm going to create a Contra game. Okay, so I just created a Contra game, and now I wanted to, like, I wanted to run the Contra game. Okay. So when I when I use the same thing, when I was trying to pass the Contra game, to the game runner class. Okay. So what happened? Actually, it is giving me an error. Why it is giving me an error? Because the game runner is tightly coupled with Contra Mario game. Okay. So let's see how. Okay, if you see here, we were passing a constructor. We were passing Mario game object directly to the constructor so that it is assigning that to the game, and it was able to run all those methods. Okay, right? So what we are doing, we are making this class very tightly coupled with Mario game. Okay, so now what we need to do, to make this class run, you have to change the code in the game runner class. Instead of Mario game, you have to pass Contra game, right? As an object. You got it? Now, if you are able to do this change and go back to the, here, just save it because you are passing the Contra game and try to run this one. Okay. See, it changed. Okay, so like let's say if you wanted to create the same thing for Pac-Man. Okay, again you need to change the game runner class, okay, which requires a change of passing an object to it, okay, that pacman object, okay, and once it is running, actually it is going to call the pacman's methods, okay, up and down, right? So this is called a tightly coupled, okay. So everywhere, every time, whenever you wanted to change a game object, okay, to run its own game methods, so you have to do a change in the game runner class, to make these classes, okay, these objects, sorry, these methods to be, running in the gaming console, right? So I I so what we have done, we have created a game runner class, and we were able to run the games, but in a tightly coupled manner. Okay, at a time, whenever you wanted to run something, you are like doing some code changes in multiple places because of this dependency, right? Like there is a tightly coupled situation between the game class and the gaming console class, game runner class. Okay. So let us get one more topic in the Java itself. We have interfaces, okay, to make this complete code, okay, loosely coupled, okay, using interfaces. Okay, so what we are going to do now, I'm going to introduce a gaming console interface, okay, which is having all the reusable methods for all these three games, okay, up, down, and left and right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just implementing uh, implements gaming console. Okay, so same way I'm going to implement. Yeah, we don't require to do any changes because it's gaming console itself is having these four methods only. So we already implemented that. That's why we will not get any errors. Okay. So let me go to Mario game and implements this. And let me go to Pac-Man, implements this. Yeah. Now let me come back to the game runner. Okay. So what game runner is having? We were having a tightly coupled object for the game runner, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'll just comment this code. Okay. Yeah. Instead of using a tightly coupled object, now I'm gonna use the interface. Okay. Interface reference. Oh, okay. Now let's see what are all the changes that we do. Okay, when you want to run for a Mario game, or when you want to run for Pac-Man, when you want to run for Contra, so what are all the changes that is required? Okay, let's see. So I have now the game runner. So I'm gonna comment these things. Okay, and this one. Okay, so yeah, I'm just enabling this one. Okay, so you wanted to run Pac-Man game. Okay, so what you have done, instead of passing a Pac-Man game object as earlier, okay, you are passing now. Okay, so you are passing. I'm sorry. Yeah. So what you're doing now, earlier actually we have a strict dependency with game runner. Okay, you have to pass one game object. Okay, either Contra game or Mario game or Pac-Man. Now I'm not. I did not mention anything over here, right? It's not a Pac-Man object, right? So I've just created an object for Pac-Man, and that game I'm trying to pass it in the game runner class. Okay. So, but what we have in the game runner, we have interface, right? Gaming console. Okay. So it's still taking the one which we are passing it, right? So let us try to run this one. Okay. What happens? We'll check it whether it runs or not. Okay. So it ran, right? So now if I want to run Mario, okay. So I just enable the Mario, sorry, Contra, and just try to run. Okay, it is running, right? And now Mario, okay, okay. See, Mario is also running, right? So now let us understand what we have done. Okay, so what we have done, we just added an extra interface on top of all these games. Okay, on these games, so that we can introduce a very good way of programming. Okay, to not to create any not to create any like tightly coupled objects and dependencies between these classes. Okay, so interface resolve that problem. Very we can we can do very minimal line at one line change, and we can call different games, okay, in the same class, and there are no other class touched to call these things, right? So let's say what we can do, what we are doing actually. So what we are trying to do now, we are just creating an object of game, and we are trying to inject, we are trying to push that object to the game runner class. Okay, object creation and wiring. So what is called wiring means, like the object whichever you created a game object. Okay, Mario game is an object, right? Whatever you created. So you are wiring this, you are passing this object to the game runner class. So that means the game runner is having a dependency, okay, which is required for the game class. Okay, so you are wiring it, with the game runner, so that you can run that game, right? So this is called object creation plus wiring. Okay, in general things. So who is doing this? We are doing it. Okay, so we are creating an object, and we are wiring that to the dependency class. So that means when you are writing a program in Java, okay, so you itself, like identifying all the dependencies, okay, and you itself wiring those dependencies with the exact objects, okay, to execute those programs. Okay, now let's see, let me go back to the PPT. So this is the iteration one we already completed, tightly coupled Java code. You guys have been already saw that how it is tightly coupled. For each and every game, you are changing the game runner class. Okay, and it will require a change in the game runner and the caller. So it's a clumsy. Okay, so next one, we introduce loose coupling with the interfaces. Okay, gaming console interface. Okay, and we understood what we are trying to do with the gaming console, and where we are injecting or where we are trying to add those objects for the dependencies, right? So now let's see, for these things, how Spring is going to help us managing those objects and wiring. So I wanted to tell you something. Okay, so let me just open Paint. Just one small example. Okay, I think it will be easy for understanding. So if you let us consider something. Okay, so this is our Java, okay, runtime environment. Okay, so whenever you are trying to do a plain Java related concepts, okay, sorry, plain the you're not using any Spring framework. Okay, so what it will happen, so whenever you create some objects, actually it is creating in the Java runtime environment. Okay, so you're creating Mario game and Contra. So these are all several objects which are already there in the Java environment, right? So now what we are trying to do, we were injecting this to whenever you required, you are just calling them and you are using it. Okay. So this is maintained by us. Okay. In the Java runtime, when to create this object and everything, we ourselves will maintain. But when it come to the Spring, right? What happens? Okay. So I'm going to show you something. Okay. This is what happens. So this is Java, and internally, and we do have one more extra. So now for, let's say, consider it as a container or, context. Okay. So what it is going to do. So here I'm just saying Java, and here actually it is Spring context. Spring context. Okay. So now what exactly that Spring is going to do in inside the Java. So Spring have its own context, and in that context, actually, it is going to maintain all these same things. Okay. So what we can say, so it is going to maintain all its objects, okay, under that Spring context. So each and everything under the Spring, okay, whatever the Spring manages, its life cycle or anything, okay. So we call it as bean, okay. So let's say, for an example, we have one bean name, and we have one bean age, or we have one bean like some object, some person, okay, and address, okay. So these are all different beans that we have it under the Spring, okay. And when you say from Java perspective, actually we call it as an object, right? Person object, address object, name, and so everything under Spring we call it as bean, okay. So let us focus what exactly this bean, okay, and how you are going to create it, okay. So while we convert this existing example, okay, using Spring, let us understand some concepts under the Spring, how it is going to manage all these beans and all. Then we'll come back to the game and we'll write the similar program using Spring. Okay, let me go back to the Eclipse. Okay. Okay, so I already created that, a couple of examples for you guys. Okay, so you don't require to, we don't require to write it now, but yeah, close all. Just a minute. Okay, so let me go directly into this Hello World Spring. Okay, so what I've done, I just created, okay, I just created, this program, okay, to make sure to make understand some concepts of Spring, okay. That would be like very the initial concepts, and these are very important concepts, like you have to understand these things, how Spring is managing these things, and how whenever it requires, okay, in the project, okay. So we usually see these kind of code, okay, to understand the flow. So if you understand the concept how Spring is maintaining, these beans and all other other beans, actually, so you'll be able to uh, easily identify, in case of any issues, you will be able to easily identify where exactly the application is failing, or where is the the bug logic exists. So So understand that concept, how Spring is behaving, and then you'll be able to understand the logic easily. Okay, so let me try uh, you know to explain what exactly we have done. Okay, so first one, as I showed you in the diagram. Okay, so in the Java, actually we maintain a Spring context separately, right? Okay, Java runtime environment Spring maintains its own context separately. So we call, like, for now you just consider it as Spring context. Okay, so how to get into that Spring context, right? So Spring provided a class. Okay, so that is new annotation configuration application this one, new annotation config application context, right? So Spring provided a class, and it is saying that, okay, just give me your configuration, okay, so that I can maintain. So what I've done actually for adding this configuration, so I have created another class, hello world configuration, which is itself having lot of, okay, a lot of beans in it. So why we added this configuration, how we can add it, right? There is a annotation that Spring already provided at the rate configuration. Okay, so this is what at the rate configuration. So manage and configure the things in Spring to manage. Okay, so tell that these are all the objects, or these are all the things that you have to manage to Spring. So we were saying with this at the rate configuration annotation to that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to the hello world configuration. So you see some some methods. So first of all, forget about all other methods. Let's take one example. Okay, string name, right? So string name is a method, okay, which I've created, and it is returning some text, okay, which is my first app. So what I've done, actually, I have created it as a bean. Okay, when I say bean, so that means when I use this this annotation, that means Spring is able to identify, okay, this is the one which I need to maintain of its life cycle. Okay, so you know, uh, it is not the programmer, task. It is only the Spring task. It will maintain all this life cycle of that bean method, right? Sorry, name method. Okay, so we made it as a bean. Okay, for we made it as this method as a bean. Okay, so let me come back and try to access that bean. Okay, how you are going to access it? Okay, so this is what I told you, right? Anything managed by Spring is called a bean. Okay, here the method is declared as bean. Okay, so what is the method name? It is name. So in the context, you are trying to retrieve that context dot get bean of, what is this? The name of the method. Okay, so let me run this. Okay, oh, okay, so if you see here, this is our, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, this is my first app. Okay, so here actually this is printed, the first, okay, the my name, and if you go back and check here, actually it is returning my first app. Okay, so this is how you call a bean, okay, in the Spring, and how it comes and all. Okay, so it is going to get that bean details from the context, and it is going to print you on the screen. Okay, so let's go in a deeper. Okay, so what we are going to do. Okay, so I have created a couple of other methods. Okay, age, and which is also a bean, and I have created a person. Okay, person record. Okay, so this person record will have all the name, age, and address. Okay, so and what I've done, actually I have created multiple things. Okay, to make sure we have different dependencies. Okay, so I've created as a bean. Okay, now let me execute all these things. Okay, so most probably everything was run just now, when we run it. So I'll tell you something. Okay, behind these concepts. Okay, so if you follow here, so my first tab, and it is printing age over here, right? And it is printing person object. What is person object? Name Hari, 25, address, street 1, and street as L2, and street AX, okay, city, right? So it is printing whatever we are passing it under the uh, you know uh, under that bean. Okay, right? So what, there are a couple of things. Okay, so everything has been executed over here. Okay, but now what you wanted to do, like, there are already a couple of beans which are managed by Spring. Okay, so if you really want to use these springs in another bean, whenever if you want to create a new bean, and with the help of existing beans, if you want to create those things, so how would you do? Like, there are two ways, okay, that you can do it. Okay, the first way, you do it with uh, calling methods directly. Okay, reusing the Spring managed beans to create or use in other beans. Okay, you are going to use it, by calling the methods of those beans. Okay, name, age, and address, right? So that you can construct this person object. This is how you're doing it. Okay, this is one way. And the second way, how you are going to do it, passing it as a param. Okay, what param? You know, what is the name of this bean? Name, right? You have to pass name. And what is the bean name of this age? Okay, you have to pass that as a parameter age. And for address, actually we have, this one, ADDR. Okay, so I have given ADDR, okay, for it. And this code is going to execute, and it is going to add your name, age, address, name, age, and address of this one, L1 street and TX. Okay, so this is going to be added over here. Okay, and and actually, it is going to print all the details, whenever it is returning the person object. Okay, so which we already saw it in the console. Okay, if you see it here, this one. Yeah, this one it is printing. Okay, so why it is printing, I'll tell you later. Okay, but yeah, for now, okay, so we were just using two different things. One is using name method, age method, and address method we are calling. Okay, the person object to create it. Okay, but the other way, you are calling with its name of those uh, particular beans. Okay, now let's go to the next concept. Okay, so now uh, how many ways that you can retrieve these beans? Okay, there are two ways that you can do. Okay, one is with the bean name, and the other one is bean type. okay, what type actually you wanted to retrieve. So let's say if we have an address class, okay, address record in the configuration class. So it internally has some multiple values, like it is created as a class, okay, one object. Okay, so now how you can call it, right? You can call using context.getBean address.class. Okay, so calling the address.class using a type. Okay, what type of object it is? Address object, right? So the type of object, you're going to call it, sir, type of class. So address.class. Okay, so it is a type, okay, for getBean, and it is going to retrieve the address related items, whatever you have it in the context, and it is going to display in it. Okay, so let's say now we have multiple address related things. Okay, let me show you one error, okay, before I use this primary. Okay, so let me run this now. Okay, so there is some error. Okay, what is the error says? Very simple. Okay, so if you see here, no qualifying bean of type. Okay, hello world configuration. What is this? Address. Okay, available X expected single matching bean, but found three different beans, for address. What Spring is saying, okay, I'm trying to retrieve, okay, based on type, okay, but I was not able to do that. Why? Because there are three different beans on the address type. Okay, so which bean I need to retrieve it? Because there should be only one bean that I'm expecting, but I found three beans, okay, in the code. So which bean I need to consider? That's what it is asking us. Okay, configure that. So how you do that? Okay, we have an annotation called primary. Okay, so if you have multiple beans, okay, with multiple, like, on the same type, okay, so if you wanted to make sure which bean you have to use it, okay, so there is a way that you can use it with, called as primary. So for most of the, like, calls, this is our default address bean, which is going to be called by Spring, for inserting some data, right? So with the primary, you are going to achieve, okay, the conflict between these multiple beans. Okay, and let's enable this one, and let me try one more time. So whether it is running it or not. See, it ran. Okay, so that means it is going to give that primary address as tx3. Okay, for the last one, right? So let me do one more extra thing. So how you are going to differentiate, okay, uh, the other type, like, there are two different types. One is you just add it as a primary, to make sure, to call this address and all, right? So there is one more thing. Okay, uh, okay, I forgot to mention something. Okay, all these beans doesn't have any names, right? We were calling directly with the method name, correct? Person, age, and all. But these things are having one extra annotation, which is, having name equals to address. So whenever you wanted to override the name, be name, okay, so you can do this with the name, attribute under the bean. Okay, so instead of calling address, you are going to call addr, so that it is going to print all, it is going to execute this bean, okay, for you, right? So yeah, let me come to the qualifier. Okay, so what is this, right? So qualifier plays a vital role, to wiring the objects. Okay, when I say wiring, that means, okay, so let's say if you wanted to use this address 3, okay, in somewhere else in the application, so you don't require to you know call this bean name. Okay, instead of bean name, you can also use this qualifier, to wire it. Okay, so how you are going to do that? Okay, if you see here, context dot get bean, and I'm just using the qualifier, person for qualifier. Okay, so person for, I'm calling this one, but what exactly this person for qualifier is having, right? If you see here, right, I'm using name, age, okay, and using qualifier with an object, address. So whenever this method calls, right, whenever this bean getting called, so what we are trying to do, we are wiring this address object. Okay, we are wiring this address 3 object directly to the person. How we are doing it? Using a qualifier. What qualifier is just doing, okay, identifying the exact bean object for you, and it is wiring on its own, okay, to that person, okay, to that person, person for qualifier method, right? So if you observe, are you creating any objects in this program? Did you create any objects? We created any objects over here? No, right? You never saw any new keyword over there, right? No new keyword except the context, right? So what we are trying to do now, as we got this in the diagram, we have Java runtime environment. We created a Spring context inside it, and we created multiple beans, okay, under the Spring context, so it can manage all these objects life cycle, you know, managed by the Spring container, okay, Spring context. Okay, so to utilize all these existing beans, okay, to utilize all these beans from Spring context, you are calling a method to retrieve each and every bean. So now let's see, what are all the available beans in the Spring. So what method that you wanted to try, okay? So to display all the beans, right? So there is one method that you can display all beans. It is get bean definition names. So it is going to give you all the available beans under the Spring context. See, these are all the available beans which we have it. Hello world configuration. Under this, we have name, age, person, person 2, person 3, param, person 4, qualifier, address, and address 2, address 3. So these are all the available beans. Okay. Hope you guys understood this. Okay. Now let me go back to the PPT. Just, I'll give you some small example. Okay, so I was using that variable type reference, right? Var. Okay, so it is introduced in Java 10. Just, I added this one because, don't, you guys don't get confused why I was using var. So which is a JavaScript related thing and all. Okay, so yeah, it is introduced in Java 10 and you can use this var. Okay, whenever you want, whenever you are trying to write some programs and, if you want to assign something, so you use this var. Okay, so the compiler will decide and it can assign those object, or whatever the type that you are trying to pass to that where so it is going to get that type, and it is going to create those objects. Okay. Okay, let me go down. Okay, so if you see why I'm saying the coupling is important, right? Tightly coupled and loosely coupled. I'll just give one small example for it. Okay, so let us consider a car. Okay, so car is very tightly coupled with engine, right? So if you want to change something in the engine, okay, so it is a very big task, and you have to uh, spend a lot of time to fix those engines, right? Or if you want to replace it, it is a very big task. Okay, to replacing it is almost not possible. Okay, so until unless, like, if you really want to use the same car, and you wanted to remove it, so it is possible, but it will take a lot of time, right? So the car is very tightly coupled with the engine, right? So let us take tires. So tires are very loosely coupled. Okay. So whenever you have something wrong with those tires, if you wanted to change it, you can do that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? So you can just remove the old tires and you can add it. So it is like a very loosely coupled combination, okay, of between car and tires, right? So let us take one more example also. A computer. Let's take a desktop what you are using at home, and you are having a laptop. So which is loosely coupled. So you can take this laptop anywhere, right? With a bag. Anywhere with a bag. Okay. So that means you can move that object without any hesitation. But if you have a computer, desktop, CPU, keyboard, mouse, so how you're going to move that? It is basically tightly coupled with your table, okay, at your home. So you cannot move that until unless if it is really required, right? So it is very tightly coupled. The same way, each and every program, okay, or each and every project, if you build as a tightly coupled, then it will be very difficult to us to manage those things in the real time. Okay, so why I was saying everything changes. Okay, so if you want to build a great software, or a very good software, so we have to do a loosely couple as much as possible, because functional changes may change. Okay, and business requirements may change, and frameworks are going to change. So we are building one project, you know one good project, okay, with different frameworks, with different business requirements, and some other some other things that we are using it in the building this project. Except our source code, everything is free to change. Okay, business requirement can change, your framework upgrades will happen, and there are other dependencies that are also going to upgrade, or something, some changes happens. So you are also impacted with that. So for keeping mind all these changes is going to happen on your project, you have to make sure your project is very loosely coupled. Okay, very loosely coupled. Okay, you make a very less code changes for all these functional changes. Okay, whatever it is going to do, right? Whatever it is going to change, you have to make sure you will be having very minimal impact. So that way you have to write the code. Okay, so let's explore now. Okay, we already explored about Java interfaces, and let's explore now with the Spring framework how it will be loosely coupled. Okay, and the concepts that you learn now for the creating beans and calling those beans, and how you are going to do, just think about it. Okay, before you come in the next class. Okay, just think about how we can write these game runner related class, using Spring context, and how you can run them. Okay, very easily, how you can manage. So just try to put it, because we have given a very good examples, for a Spring. So I told you couple of steps. Just remember those things whenever you wanted to run or create any Spring application. So you need two things. You need lot of beans. Okay, so these beans should be used and managed by container. For that, you are going to create a context, and you are going to retrieve all the beans. But where these beans has been created, it is created in the configuration class, right? So we have used, sorry, we have used configuration class, okay, hello world configuration class, okay, to achieve or to create all those beans, right? Okay, so similarly, you can try to imagine what are all the classes that we are going to create extra, to run that game runner class using Spring. Okay, so how you can do that? Just try to get those concepts, or get ready with that. Okay, tomorrow morning we will try to complete this program with the Spring, and I'm going to introduce Spring Boot and how you can manage, okay, writing a code in Spring Boot, how it reduced. Okay, I'm gonna show you that example as well tomorrow. Okay, so Spring and Spring Boot. Okay, I wanted to give some more, one more thing about Spring and Spring Boot and Java. Okay, so generally, when we in in older days, actually we have only Java, right? So whenever, I'm sorry, one second. When you write some code in Java, or whenever you create some code, okay, you might be writing 1,000 lines of code, okay, in it. But when it came to Spring, right? So it reduced, okay, it reduced to 700 lines. Okay, so Spring was able to manage those 300 lines, whatever we are trying to write it in Java, okay, for a project. And the very new concept which came, right? That is our Spring Boot, right? So which entirely reduces the code, no, to 300 lines. So this evolution, right? This revolution actually from Java to Spring Boot, we are writing a very good programming, with the help of Spring and Spring Boot. So it optimized, the coding lines of the programmer, and we were using most of the things from annotations, to understand these concepts, and to utilize them, reutilize them, whatever Spring provided to us. Okay, so that's why the coding steps, the coding lines has been reduced very, very rapidly. Okay, when we use Spring Boot and Spring. Okay, so let us discuss these things, tomorrow. I'll show you how the Spring is managing all these beans. Okay, and how easy that, the game runner class, whatever we have introduced in Java interfaces, what are all the steps that we can remove it from the existing application, okay, using Spring, and how Spring is going to manage those objects, we'll discuss it. Okay, so if you guys have any questions now, please let me know. I'll try to explain them. Okay, I'll try to cover them. Do you have any questions? Okay, so no questions, right?